Hi, everybody. Today I have a really special guest. Her name is Jenny Chase, and we've known each other for many, many years. Jenny is an agent, and she splits her time between Los Angeles and New York. And Jenny, thank you so much for being part of the Passionate Ones.
Thank you for having me.
I want to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
Describe to us, the people watching on YouTube, what exactly does an agent in the fashion business do?
Well, it's a good question, because actually when you're working with domestic companies, you call yourself a rep. But when you're working with international companies, you call yourself an agent. So an agent is the intermediary between the designer and the shop. So basically, I help market and develop product for the U.S. market with mostly Italian designers for the last 22 years, but actually now I'm working with some Indian designers, with a designer in Nepal, with a designer from Lebanon, but I really now want to work with designers where we're contributing to a charitable cause, or at least a portion of the percentage is going to, for example, with the cashmere company that I work with, a portion of the proceeds is going to a children's charity in Nepal that takes children off the street and out of slavery. And in India, I'm working with a designer, an amazing, amazing designer who was just nominated for Vogue Italia's Best New Designer of the Year. But we developed a product together with a Swami from Central India called Blessed, and a portion of the proceeds is going to children on his ashram, because he has a school on his ashram, to feed them and some of his devotees.
It seems that in today's day and age, not only do companies have to make a good product, but they have to be socially aware as well and responsible. Let me ask you a question. The factories and the designers that you work with, do you go and visit their factories to see how their workers are being treated, and if tell me a little bit what that's like, because that's the part of the business that a lot of people don't understand. They think it's just like all like fashion shows and great parties, but
I mean, as you can imagine, in Italy, going to the factories is incredible. Like the food that you eat and the people that you're around, like it's very beautiful, and all of the brands are artisanal. But in India and Nepal, they're third world countries, right? So the factories, maybe we in the West would not see them as luxurious as they are in Italy, but the people who are working there are equally, if not more, passionate about the products they're creating, and actually, like the factory that we work with in Nepal, the cashmere is made by hand. It's hand dyed in like a kind of large mixing bowl.
So they still do a lot of that.
Vegetable dyes.
They still do a lot of that work the old way. They haven't really like I know in some of the Italian factories that I've visited, everything is so technologically advanced, and they're using all the best equipment, and they're just churning out pieces day in and day out. Versus the factories that you work with in India, they seem to still have that quite a bit of a hand touch that goes along with that. I've seen some of the block printers in India. It's amazing. Can you talk about some of the things that you don't find anymore? Like,
it's true in Nepal, when you are when you want something made, when you want a sample made, it's basically like a cashmere canvas. They're basically just hand painting on cashmere, and you have so much control over the finished garment, and the people that you work with you can just feel inside and out the beauty in their work, and the beauty in their surroundings, and it also has a spiritual component that surpasses anywhere in the world.
It's amazing. Jenny, could you show us some examples of some of the work that they do?
Yeah. So, for example, in Nepal, We work with this cashmere company, the one I was telling you about, and basically you can send them a photo, and they this is a little baby sweater, but they just make this little design.
Is that a tie-dye?
It's a tie-dye on cashmere, 100% cashmere. Nepal really works only with 100% cashmere, and it's all hand-loomed. They
they
collect
don't use
the yarn.
machines.
Nothing is machine-made, all handmade.
But Nepal has had a long, long history of working in
With
cashmere.
cashmere,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
Because of the goats that are found up there, right?
Yeah.
The Nepalese cashmere goats.
Yes.
And how they differ from the Tibetan, Inner Mongolian goats.
Yes.
Yes.
And actually, Nepal is the center of Tantra. It's the only remaining matriarchal religion. And so we named all of the styles in this collection, Parker Blue, after the goddess, 10,008 names of the goddess Durga. And it's just incredible to go visit there because they have goddess pujas or ceremonies in almost every temple that you go to.
So are you saying that women are responsible for running also the businesses and the factories? How does that...
They can, but also because Tantra is the only remaining matriarchal religion, and they have what they call in Nepal the living goddesses. They're called Kumaris. So instead of a god, you have these goddesses.
Interesting.
Yes. So there's a cashmere piece. I was just going to show like a handmade piece from one of our designers from Florence, Lorenza Gandaglia, and this is a beautiful.
What is?
Yeah, there's sequins. Beautiful handmade bag, hand crocheted bag that she makes. And then I just brought some of the swatches of the Indian designer. So basically, when you place an order with this designer, you can have any of these incredible...
Is that a combination like a shibori?
Those are shiboris, and these are, tie-dye, like tie-dye shibori.
Are these silk or cashmere?
These are silk, but you can have them also in cotton, or cotton and silk, or lyocell and linen. You can have any color and any fabric. They're just beautiful, right? Isn't it incredible?
Have you been able to see the artisans as they're dyeing the swatches?
Yes.
Isn't that an amazing?
Yeah.
Would you just briefly walk us through when you walk into one of these dye houses?
It's not, it's a third world country, so it's not like you would imagine. It's, people sitting on the floor and dyeing these pieces of fabric by hand. It's incredible to see. India is far beyond anything that you can see in the world. I imagine Africa is probably similar, which is where I want to work next.
So one of the intrinsic beauties of these kinds of hand dyeing is like you're never going to get more or less the piece you're looking at. You're going to get something similar.
Yeah, they're like completely handmade. This one in particular is called Yavi and Raga, but they're completely handmade, hand dyed. The fabrics are beautiful.
Now, you had mentioned something about vegetable dyes also.
Yeah.
Do they use
also,
plant extracts and certain vegetables to create colors?
Yes, and the most incredible thing about this collection, which you're not going to see anywhere in the world, when you go to India and you visit a sacred temple, they have an incredible amount of flowers, just like I've never seen anything like it before. And all of these flowers are discarded daily.
But don't they give the flowers as a
offering?
An offering to
Yes,
the goddesses,
yes,
correct?
yes.
And they bring them every day.
Yes, every day. So you can't imagine how many flowers they have. So these discarded flowers, they use them in the dyeing process.
I see.
I say it again. The discard.
Santa Monica Airport.
So the discarded flowers they use in the dyeing process with this collection. So basically these are sacred pieces of clothing because sacred flowers. So basically these are sacred pieces of clothing because sacred flowers that were used in these sacred temples were used to make the product.
And originally, hundreds of, even thousands of years ago, garments were dyed using natural
Yes,
plants
of course.
and or flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just recently in the past like 50, 70 years that they began to using chemicals to achieve the same coloration.
Yes, but these are, handmade products in one of the most sacred places in the world. So that's why. And they've really preserved these techniques. And, young people in India, especially this designer Avyabi, has gone around to all of the regions in India to study how these artisans are making products. So the product lines that we're coming out with from this designer are just like home and accessories and shoes and just everything.
Speaking of product, now you work with companies that are so far away, like you said, some would be Indian, some would be Nepalese. Do you help facilitate in any of the design for the markets here in America? And in doing so, can you kind of also explain how your job as, I guess would be referred to as a merchandiser?
Yes. Yes.
What would that mean for the people out there who don't understand?
Well, I'm also helping them design the products. So with these two charitable projects that I work with, I am helping them develop the product for the U.S. market, but also for the world.
Now, so let me ask you a question. The stuff that they make for their Indian market, how does that differ from what the American market, American tastes?
Yeah, so different because
and where does your knowledge come in?
So in India, they have a very different way of dressing. You're basically dressing in a three-piece outfit every day with leggings and then a long piece over that and then a long piece over that. So everything in your body is completely covered. But at least in sacred places in India, in the bigger cities, they have a more modern way of dressing. However, in the United States, we have a very different way of dressing here. People like things to fit their body more, and we don't cover up every part of our skin. So, but in India, it's very different. So definitely.
So, do the factories then take your expertise in mind when you say, no, we need to also...
Yes, absolutely. And I send them, styles that are appropriate for the market here. And,
Okay, very good.
Yes.
What else do we talk about? Oh, I have another question for you.
Okay.
All right. I know we're living in a shit show right now.
Yes.
And the old business model has been sort of thrown on its head. Now, I've known you for a long time. You've had a showroom. You've always had a showroom for as long as
22 years.
22 years. What, or better yet, how have you been able to redefine your business paradigm in your particular business? How has that changed? Have you done something different?
I think I've really focused on marketing, because I think since everybody is sitting at home, they really, have more time to look at marketing materials instead of seeing things in person. So I've really focused on working on marketing instead of, a showroom space. So that's how it's differed now, and it's actually been very successful.
Because you have like one of the strongest social media games out there, both on Instagram and your Facebook. I mean, and also, I don't think a lot of people know this, but we were talking earlier, you have almost close to 20 collections that you represent for the United States.
Yeah, and some for the world.
That's a lot of schmata.
That's a lot of schmata. Going back to our ancestors.
And as a follow-up to that, how do you not only find new collections, how do you discover? I mean, I know there's always a lot of word of mouth going on, but can you tell us like one particular story of like it was just meant to happen, where you just sort of fell into this person's showroom?
I mean, there's so many. I think those are like
the magical moments
kismet,
in fashion.
Just incredible stories. But there is one very funny story. that I was actually with one of my friends who's a celebrity trainer, and she would always take me to these exercise classes because she would go for free. And one time I went to this exercise class of this man, and he was very flirtatious. So after the class, I looked him up on Instagram, and I was speaking to my sister on the phone, and I was like, oh, look at this guy's Instagram. And so she starts looking, and she's like, wow, like he's actually really into fashion. And I looked at the post that she was referring to, and I just looked like he was filming like his cousin who had just started a denim brand. And I sent a message to this denim designer, and we started working together. And it's just funny how all of that kind of happens. But just I can't tell you how many designers where we worked with a designer who became very famous, who just had like a one printed dress when I first met her in her little teeny apartment in West Hollywood, and now she's just turned into this big presence now with stores and yeah.
So I guess the other thing, and this isn't a question so much as it's an observation, because I've known you for so long, is you have a very finely tuned, very keen sense of style, and so you kind of know where the market is going before it actually gets there. And do you purposely go out and seek certain collections that you know may not hit right away, but if you nurture these designers...
I actually never seek them. That's the interesting thing. I never see something and then say like, oh, I think I should go after that. It's always somehow a strange like introduction. But I think after these designers are nurtured, and after a few seasons of research on their end and my end, all of a sudden it hits, and then it's incredible to watch. It's incredible to watch when they remain humble and when they don't forget how they started. However, it's less incredible to watch when the ego takes over.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, that's
a
lot of ego in our business.
It's true, and I hate to be in the business of building egos. I'd like to be in the business of being creative and making beautiful product, and that is where I think my specialty has been in the last 22 years.
And I know we haven't mentioned any names of the collections that you do, but do you think you can just utter a few of your favorite, well, it doesn't have to be favorite, but some of the brands that you do work with that maybe some of the people out there may not be familiar with?
Work with now, or have worked with in the past?
Working right now.
Oh, okay. Well, like I mentioned, these incredible Indian designers, Yavi and Raga, and then we developed a collection with them called Blessed, the one that we...
So you were just telling me this earlier. It's called Blessed because...
Well, this is an interesting story because I would always frequent this spiritual bookstore for their special events. And one time I went to the bookstore and I met this Italian Swami. And soon after, he found me on Instagram and started sending me all of these messages. And we started this sort of relationship. I ended up going with him to India, and it was just the most incredible experience of my life, visiting these ashrams and in these spiritual centers, just incredibly beautiful and incredibly special. And I hadn't been back to India in 30 years, so he actually introduced me to this 110-year-old Swami, and he said, when we were together, you're going to end up working with him. And I couldn't really understand how at the time. Maybe just 2 or 3 months later, I was in Paris at the famous trade show Trenoy, and I met this Indian designer. Turns out this Indian designer had been producing for a very famous designer in the United States for many years. And I said, I think I'd like to come back to India, and maybe you'd like to come back with me to meet this Swami, this yogi. They were very interested, and about 3 months later, I flew back to India. They flew down to this sacred place with me, and we went to the ashram of this Swami, and we developed this product called Blessed. Because when you visit a Swami in India, a living Swami, even one who's no longer living, they give you prasad. It's like a in the form of a food or clothing. It's normally food, and it's a blessing, sometimes a scarf. And so we decided to do this collection together called Blessed, that would be blessed by the Swami, and a portion of the proceeds goes to children, because he has a school of 10,000 children on his ashram, and where they feed them and clothe them, and it's a boarding school. They teach yoga and meditation, which is the happiest children you've ever seen. And I don't think there are children as happy in the West. And smart, very smart. So a portion of the proceeds is going to the ashram to feed the children, the people on the ashram.
Fantastic. Okay, I know we already touched upon this question earlier. Well, it wasn't so much a question, but I was commenting on how great your social media game is. Can you tell me how important to have a very strong social media game, how important it is nowadays to get your message out there, especially when you're dealing with these small brands that don't have this huge advertising budget and they're not plastered all over every billboard up and down the streets. How do you approach it, and what kind of reaction do you get from your clients that are your stores, and also final consumers? What's the give and take on that? Have you seen a big change?
Well, I think it's really interesting because I think you find yourself in fashion because you just can't see yourself doing anything else. It's just you do it because you're passionate about it. And so I feel like your social media should reflect that passion. What is fashion? What is creativity? You are spreading beauty. That is why we're in this business. So I think that's
in essence, part of your job description is that you make people feel better about themselves.
I mean, I think definitely, clothing makes women feel beautiful. So, and it is a statement, an expression of who we are. So, but I think feeling better about yourselves is an inside job, not really an outside job. But sometimes it can be stimulated by something on the outside. In other words, when you go see a spiritual person, you are having an inner feeling, not an outer experience. But sometimes, like I was saying, this prasad or these blessed clothing can give you an inner experience of something outer that can give you an inner experience. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And so your social media comes into effect because when I see your feed, I see a little bit of fashion, I see some worship, I see some prayer, I see some meditation, I see some dancing. So you're not bombarding people with this is fashion, fashion, fashion. I mean, you're really showing them
it's a lifestyle, right?
Which apparently I would have to say a reflection of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because again, if you know Jenny like I know Jenny, she's not a one-dimensional person. Her vocation is fashion, in the sense that she has a mobile showroom nowadays.
Yeah.
And
blessing.
She sees clients that are here in America and also all over the world. And she works with manufacturers that are spread out all over the world, Europe, Italy, and of course India, Nepal. And then you have a very strong spiritual practice as well.
I do.
Which you don't find very often in the fashion
Not
business.
in fashion.
Yeah.
Which is the antithesis of growing an ego, would be a spiritual practice, because that is it's a tricky situation in fashion.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Sometimes I ask myself, who do I have to know to get out of this business? But as long as I know you, I know that like at least we're safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're safe not being too attached to who we are.
Anyway, Jenny, I got a little exactly. Jenny, I got a little present for you. I'm gonna scooch up next to you.
You have to know that
I'm gonna get into the
watch
camera.
Giovanni's TikTok feed daily.
So
sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. So I know exactly what this is.
Jenny Chase also is on TikTok. She's a far better dancer than I am. Anyway, Jenny, I wanted to give you this Fruta and Verduta bag, and I just want to sign it.
Okay.
So I'm going to just put this over here.
I'm so excited.
And I can't tell you how thankful and grateful I am that you.
Same.
And by the way, this interview obviously is going to be on YouTube in a couple of weeks. But if you go in about another hour or so, actually, in a little while, you'll be able to see. What did I do today, Jenny? What did I do for you guys?
Ooh, Giovanni made an incredible Italian meal for my employees and I, and we had a socially distanced outdoor lunch in Venice, at my house, in my yard. It was lovely. What
Jenny,
a blessing today has been.
You get 35 of 100. I'll sign it for you.
Wow.
And here, you want to show everybody the signature?
Okay, here's the signature, and let me tell you what this is. Fruta and Verdura.
Anyway, thank you so much, Jenny. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have gotten a little bit of insight of not only what Jenny does, but what we do and what our business is. Actually, there's hope for our business.
There is.
Yeah.
There's a future.
If anything, I think the COVID, this pandemic has made certain people in our industry basically just change their entire paradigm of the way they do business. And I know that it's happened to me, it's happened to you.
Yeah.
We have to constantly reinvent ourselves in this business anyway.
And that is fashion. We're constantly recreating.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.